Democracy That Delivers is brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. Now, to your host.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Democracy That Delivers podcast. I will be your host today. I'm Luisa Ivazyan. I'm a program officer for Armenia under the South Caucasus team. I am located in Yerevan in the South Caucasus region. Today, we will be discussing the beneficial ownership transparency in Armenia, the related reforms and the challenges that exist in the country and hinder the implementation of the beneficial ownership transparency related reforms. We will also discuss the impact of the beneficial ownership registry on the private sector in Armenia. I have a pleasure of being joined today by Lilia Afrikan. Lilia is the coordinator of the Open Government Partnership Initiative, OGP, in Armenia, and she is OGP's point of contact here. She works as a Prime Minister's staff member. Just to mention that the government of Armenia has committed to launching the beneficial ownership institution within the OGP initiative several years ago. Also, it's a pleasure to introduce SAIP's partner, Shushan Doidoyan, the president of Freedom of Information Center of Armenia. Welcome. Thank you for joining our session.
Thank you, Luisa, for inviting us. It's an honor to be here and talk around this very important topic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Also, it's very interesting also to produce what's going on and field of disclosure of beneficial owners.
Thank you so much for your time and for your readiness to help and to explain to our listeners what's going on in Armenia. So for our listeners who don't know much about the country and about Armenia, Shushan, could you please give a short overview of how and why the beneficial ownership became an ongoing priority for the country?
Thank you. Well, the process started right after the revolution in 2018. And it has been an ongoing priority for the Armenian government and civil society since then. The Armenian government and civil society have been engaged in the process jointly, uniting their efforts. And first of all, it became a commitment included in the action plan of the Armenian government within the Open Government Partnership. It became a special commitment in the fourth OGP action plan of Armenian government to launch beneficial ownership transparency process in the field of EITI, extractive industries companies, as a pilot field. Thus, we succeeded in leveraging the Open Government Partnership Action Plan to advance the beneficial ownership transparency reform in the country, where the government showed a high political interest and will for a progress in the field. And within the 2 years implementation process, the government fully completed this commitment by adopting all necessary legislative amendments and designing and building an electronic public registry to collect, store, and publish data on the beneficial owners of the mining companies. And then afterwards, the government expanded the reform in all spheres, in all fields of business, including the media, procurement, all businesses. So thus, within the 2 years implementation process, the government succeeded to adopt and launch the implementation process of the comprehensive beneficial ownership transparency reform in the country. But let's state the fact that the whole process, the drafting process, the implementation process has been done and still is ongoing to be, the process is done by the assistance and by active engagement of the civil society, which is really very important.
Thank you, Shushan. That's great to hear all these details. But Lilia, this question is for you. So just to make it general, what do we want to achieve eventually as a government by signing under beneficial ownership transparency?
Thank you, Luisa. Thank you, Shushan, for introducing, summing up what's going on. You know that generally the disclosure of any data is challenging for all governments, but disclosure of data of beneficial owners, entities is a challenging task for not only developing countries, but also for achieved ones. We are now on the session of Open Government Partnership regional meeting, where most of developed countries do not ready to open the data on real owners and also open the registers for public. So it's challenging for all countries. But anyway, we started to fight against money laundering in Armenia from relevant law. And then our EITI partners started some processes related to the mining sector in 27, but during the co-creation, the government in 2011, no, sorry, 18th, yes. The government faced the demand from the CSO partners and citizens to make unified platform and revealing beneficial owners. It's also very challenging for us as when I summing up, then it was newly formed government and we were expecting a snap parliamentary elections, and we all know that this package of legislation should be amended by the parliament. Anyway, we tackled this commitment and going on with all international organizations with their recommendations, and why it is important also for the government, not only by the means of developing trust of citizens towards the government, but also making some communication and cooperation with CSOs, as the validation of data should be done also by our partners, investigative journalists or CSOs. And in line with this, we can say that aiming to attract more foreign investment, particularly in the mining sector, the transparency and accountability of the field and the provision of access to reliable information for public sector and business circle were the primary issue for Armenia, mainly for the government. But it was not sufficient. Could not provide a comprehensive process of disclosure and could cause problems in attracting investments and developing entrepreneurship. So we had 2 rounds of legislation amendments. It was very hard. We hold not only COVID and struggling by COVID, but also escalation of 2020. But anyway, we can state that the recent assessment of open ownership organization who is specialized on launching a beneficial ownership register. Armenia and Latvia have been highly assessed for their experience in implementing global standards and requirements. And from 2023, all entities or organizations should deliver their beneficial owners declarations.
So when you say all the organizations, you mean media, CSOs, and the private sector, like all the
Yes, commercial and non-commercial, yes.
Thank you for these details. Another question, as I understood, it has already been a year that the reform has been fully implemented. Have there been any serious or minor challenges while implementing the reform? Lilia, I guess this question goes to you.
Frankly speaking, we can state still any reform, but it's on our attention, and we are working on somehow data validation. We have taken some processes within the OGP New National Action Plan to modernizing and developing beneficial ownership institution. It's a new institution for all countries and for the world. The ambition was setting up by international partners, but no one can ensure how to go on. Each country has its own process roadmap. So for Armenia, for data validation, somehow our state register do not have enough resources for checking this data from 2023. So we discussed with our partners from Ministry of Finance how to help state register. We are going on to develop new e-procurement system in Armenia. You know, it's also a public demand to make a transparent and accountable procurement system. So we will have some regulations in the field. All companies that would participate in procurement processes should deliver their beneficial owners declaration from the register, and after that they would be allowed to participate in the process. And after this, after the procurement process, the Ministry of Finance will pass this information of who were participating, which companies, which declarations they brought from the register. They would pass this information to CPC, Corruption Prevention Commission, and CPC will install it in new declaration system and find out some coincides or corruption.
Can I also comment on that question, Luisa? Yes, of course. Beneficial ownership transparency helps the private companies to maintain legal transparency, minimize conflict of interest, ensure their operations comply with anti-corruption requirements. But of course, as Lydia already mentioned, the process is very new for the whole world, including Armenia. And of course, challenges do exist. And I would like to list some of the challenges that I find the most urgent ones, and that we should find some solutions, urgent solutions for them. First of all, it relates to the media field, since the process also covers media companies. We just today we had an official talk with some media managers, chief editors, and there is one challenge for the media field, that they have fears that opening up the information about their beneficial owners might create a threat for the press freedom. And they express also their concern that if the initiative is not used correctly, it can be turned into an instrument to pressure the media. So this is a quite realistic fear that we should somehow work closely with the media companies to explain why it is in their interest to open up, to disclose information about their real owners, that this is the key to build or to rebuild the trust towards the media, which is globally decreasing year by year. I'm talking about the public trust towards the media. So the second issue is related to the accuracy of the data declared to the state registry. So no one now checks the accuracy, the correctness of the declared information. The private companies, they just fill in the declarations and submit electronically to the state authority. But unfortunately, there is no checking mechanism for of the accuracy of the data. So I think that, and also on the other hand, there is a wide unawareness or low level of awareness among the civil society how to use beneficial ownership data, which is publicly available. First of all, they need to improve their skills and capacities, how to search for the information, how to compare different registers, global and local registers, and to make some findings about some risks, conflict of interest containing in the declarations from one hand, and also to empower or to strengthen the capacities of the state authority, which is the public registry, to equip them with necessary knowledge and human resources also, who will be responsible for conducting the checking process, the oversight process. Otherwise, if this oversight process is not done, and it will undermine, I think, the real value, the public register. And the third issue, again related to the public registry, is that only media representatives, just one representative from each media company, has the right to have free access to the published data, which is extremely restricting the possibilities of the public, of the civil society, to conduct this public oversight over the process. Other members of the society should pay. Of course, the fee is not very high, but I'm talking about equal opportunities of every member of the society to have free access to the public registry, to the declared information. So I think if this constraint is solved, is eliminated, then we might expect having a wider and more powerful public oversight over the process. And the last challenge may be, let me just point out the last one also. The last challenge is related to the liability and sanctions. We see the application of administrative or criminal liability might create some risk of interference, especially in the field of the media self-regulatory mechanism should be fostered and applied for gaining stronger and long-term impact. Measures of responsibility should be preventive and not just punitive or repressive. While if administrative cases are opened, in the cases when, let's say, media companies are delaying submission process or submitting some inaccurate information, the state should be very attentive while applying administrative or, which is very important, criminal liability regulation.
Thank you, Shushan, for this information. I guess this is very helpful to know for everyone who is going to be engaged in the beneficial ownership transparency related reform. Lilia, does the government plan to somehow assess those risks and to somehow change the reform process implementation to at least to organize the capacity building and the awareness raising initiative on the reform?
Yes, indeed. As you have mentioned, I was mentioned, we are tackling to continue the interoperability between agencies and ministry, and also we are working closely with our partners, mainly with FOICA, on spreading the awareness. First of all, we started from mass media representatives, but I guess from 2023, when all companies should provide their declarations, there would be need to work closely with private sector to deliver what is it this declaration, what we're expecting to have, and why it is important for them also to bring declaration for avoiding some misunderstandings, restrictions from by the law. Anyway, it's new, and we are closely working with our international partners to find out which solutions, best experiences we can localize to check or validate the data. How find the red flags and go on. It's very new, and I would like to stand by that our international partners appreciate all efforts that Armenia, both from government side, from CSO sides, putting to realize this institution. It's new institution, and also I would like frankly tell you that. In public administration and also in among the citizens, there is not any understanding what is it, beneficial owner, who is this person, how to find him, and why it is important to find him. And the data validation still is the main challenge for the government, and we face it. And yes, we have tackled the different activities to go on with development of PO processes. But anyway, it's very hard and ongoing. We do not know exactly what will be in a year, but we definitely know that we are continuing work on this direction. And by the way, we are open to for any recommendation, any suggestion. We just met our friends and colleagues within this summit. Anyway, the huge main challenge is the data validation, how to validate this data and how to develop the capacity of targeted stakeholders.
Yeah. By the way, just to mention, Lilia, I don't know whether you are aware or no. At this moment, SIPE works with FOICA on beneficial ownership transparency related project, and our aim is to advance the existing beneficial ownership transparency related efforts in Armenia by engaging new key stakeholders in the process. I just have another question just to understand and to know, do you have any data on how many organizations and companies already provided their declarations and registered in this register? Do we have any number?
Frankly speaking, approximate number, as all new companies that are registering in state register, they providing their beneficial owners declaration. But what's related to the previous also registered ones, we can state we have only statistics on the newly registered companies or entities. But anyway, I can provide the final or exact date on statistics by checking it with our state register partners. We know that it's only deal with newly registered entities.
Mm-hmm.
And we definitely know that by March 2023, all business companies will be submitting their declaration. So this is for sure.
Yes.
But the exact
Yeah.
number, there should be tens of thousands of companies. So every single entity should submit a declaration. And it should become publicly available for everyone.
That's going to be very, interesting and welcome, I guess, by all the citizens of Armenia. Shushan, I have a question for you. Lilia mentioned in her talk that this reform is going to attract and to secure, it's going to ensure more secure business investment. Can you elaborate more on this? How do you imagine that this reform will bring more secure investments to Armenia?
Yes, because it will create or build the trust towards the companies, regardless of what field they are operating. This is the key for public trust. If there is a trust towards, if there is a confidence, and if there is little space for corruption risks, then this company has a high reputation. It becomes attractive for the investments. And the same we can tell about media companies. If they are open, transparent, responsible towards the public prefers to consume their content. And on the contrary, if they are hiding behind the scenes, they do not want to release who are, their sponsors, their funders, then the public has big suspicions who orders the content. So what I want to say that this is the key for the public trust for any business entity and for the financial confidence, for financial support. The trust, I think, is the key.
I want to aid from economic perspectives to ensure a secure business environment for the investments and create trust in the government. It's very important. And I would like to say that it's find its reflection in other international indexes, business indexes, and most of international organizations appreciate and highly evaluate these efforts, and some improvements have been made on this direction. Anyway, it's very important to ensure the rule of law and accountability all in all, and for all participants, stakeholders, citizens in the country, and prevent the misuse of the companies on money laundering and other illegal purposes. It's very important to empower citizens, also civil society organizations, investigative journalists, to carry out proper oversight, make data available for the evidence-based decision making, and many other things. I know about your project, Luisa. Shushan told us, and happy that you are standing with FOICA, and FOICA is standing with government. So we have a very interesting chain of cooperation, and I'm definitely know that we would succeed and also continue to bring our experience. I would like to say that also there's a very interesting phenomenon that not all beneficial ownership commitment implementers, countries, I mean, agreed to become members of beneficial ownership leadership group. It's very interesting phenomenon, as we have under our OGP umbrella more than 10 countries who are tackling to implement beneficial ownership. But during the previous summit, they refused to join this leadership group. It's somehow measure of political will of some governments, and we are in.
So Armenia is the member of the group, yes?
Not me, but the government of Armenia.
But the government, no, the government, I mean Armenia.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to know.
And Latvia or Latvia? Latvia is Latvia. Yes, Latvia is a member.
So since our time is gonna end soon, I have a final question to Shushan. I guess you mentioned that the CSOs also have a great role in promoting the beneficial ownership transparency. Can you elaborate on this? How do they do this, or what's their interest in promoting the beneficial ownership transparency?
Yes. As I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, CSOs has central role in the whole process, in the drafting of the commitment, in supporting the government by advice, by any kind of support which is needed for the government as well as for the private sector. Because at the moment, private sector needs huge support to understand the importance, to understand their role in the reform. Otherwise, the reform will fail if there is no enough or sufficient understanding about the importance of the reform, then it might fail. So I think there is a space for close cooperation and work with the private sector, with the entities to explain their role, to explain their obligations, and how they might also avoid of being sanctioned by the state for not complying with the law requirements. For the civil society, also it might have a crucial role to create some innovative methods to apply to apply the ownership information. As I say, there is a very low usage of the published data, and civil society lacks capacities and knowledge how to use this crucial information. But of course, some actors are very, very active, and they might also help the government and civil society to create innovative solutions to raise the usage of the published data. They also might help the government by researching, by monitoring the process, revealing the mapping or the shortcomings, and helping the government with solutions and their expertise. Also, public discussions, talks with all stakeholders, with business associations, private companies, should be a regular process. Discussions are also important so that the public demand will be created on access to business ownership, and the public will be concerned on becoming aware that it's their right and legitimate interest to have access to who owns the businesses. And civil society, I would like to stress once again, civil society should be granted with complete and free access to public registry, to apply public control over the process, and to help the government to find out who are the violators of the legislation and to apply sanctions if necessary. And I think if these challenges are managed accordingly and timely, I'm more than convinced that in a very short time period, Armenia will become one of the best and progressive practice owners in the field of beneficial ownership transparency.
Yes, let's hope so. I do hope that the country will become the world leader in these processes. Lilia and Shushan, thank you so much for joining us today for Democracy That Delivers podcast. I wish you luck and success in terms of promoting the beneficial ownership transparency in Armenia. And I do hope that we will have a chance to talk later to discuss the success stories that Armenia had in this process. Thank you once again.
Thank you for your support. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Luisa. Thank you. Looking forward for more cooperation.
Bye.
Democracy That Delivers has been brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. For more information, please visit sipe.org.